Hi everyone, my name is Aruna Shekhar and I am going to present to you my short course on design thinking. So just give me a few minutes, I will share the screen. Okay, so welcome to this introduction to the short course on design thinking in innovation. As I said, my name is Aruna Shekhar. Before I go into the course and the learning outcomes, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. So I have been a Massey University academic for 25 plus years in Auckland, New Zealand. I've been teaching product development and product innovation management. I have got a gold medal and a few awards. I've got this certificate on the left top corner, which is from the Product Development and Management Association, and it's called NPDP certificate, which is New Product Development Professional. In fact, I set up the Product Development and Management Association in New Zealand in 2006, and I was the president over 2 terms, and I'm still on the board. It's an industry body for the field of product innovation. And across the slide, there are a few other projects, just to give you a sneak peek into some of the projects I've been involved in. The one on the left at the bottom is on air quality projects, basically educational projects for school students to learn about the importance of having good air quality. And then I've conducted a number of design thinking workshops for companies and startup founders and innovators across the board, as well as tertiary students, undergrads and postgrads. And on top, there's a example of a project that won international award, and that was with the Engineers Without Borders. They give us the brief or the problem, saying that in Nepal, in some of the villages, there's a lot of smoke from the type of cooking method they have in their huts. And so this team, supervised by myself, came up with this affordable stove, and they won the national award and went over to Melbourne in Australia and presented there and got recognition there as well. And then on the right top is a book that I've co-authored. I've also got a number of other publications. I've written about project-based learning. And in fact, just the other day, I got a call from someone in Montana in the US saying that they read the paper and they wanted to discuss how I conduct project-based courses. I also have had collaborations with Stanford University, the design school, and IDEO. IDEO is a design consultancy in the US, and I've had collaborations with the founder, David Kelly. Just on the side is also a little about my family. My husband is an engineer, and so is my daughter and son-in-law. My daughter did her Bachelor of Engineering here in Auckland University, and then she went to do a master's at Stanford University, and she's now at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Tech, doing an executive MBA. What is this short course about? It's about design thinking, which is a really, really good method of innovation. And it's a creative, problem-solving, collaborative method. Why is design thinking so important? There are many problems and opportunities in the world that design thinking can help solve. So I'm really passionate about using design thinking and applying it to solve problems. So what are the learning outcomes? You learn the essential skills on product innovation. You will understand the process and the number of methods that you could use to reach better solutions and outcomes. You will learn how to identify opportunities and then move it forward to generating ideas for products or services. And then you learn how to evaluate and test those concepts. And then you'll also gain valuable insights from some of the examples and case studies that I share. I often have students come to me and say, I have this product idea, but I don't know what to do next. Or how can we improve something simple, just an everyday product, like, say, a stapler? And they say, oh, I would like to improve this because it doesn't work every time I use it. So it's anything, your design thinking can be applied to a range of product categories, services, across the board, across product categories and industries. What you learn, you'll gain some valuable skills, particularly 21st century skills that have been identified as the 4 Cs, and much, much more. So the 4 Cs are critical thinking. You'll be critiquing concepts. You'll learn that communication is so important during the process, and collaboration. Again, product innovation is a team game, and you'll learn a lot of creativity methods as well. You'll end up with a creative solution. So I'm one who likes to cover both theory as well as the practical application. Innovation skills are required now much more than ever before, because there's so much rapid change around in the world. My teaching style is definitely very modern, based into small chunks, micro-learning that's easy to understand and grasp, and it's interactive. So I do like to have some props. I show some products when I'm talking about some examples. I cover real-world industry cases. I can have quizzes. I do have breakout sessions and think breaks. And I also give you the opportunity to apply some of the methods that I teach, and you can apply it in your own time. So it's completely up to you how far you take your application side of things. And along the way, it's important to enjoy, learn, have fun, and gain an all-round experience. So why is innovation important? It's extremely important because it helps businesses grow, because you're coming up with new products that keep them competitive in the marketplace. It helps you because you stay ahead of the competition, and you help the company grow, and you learn how to analyze the market and keep up with customer needs. And by innovating and improving products, you're also helping people do things better, do their jobs better, and enhance their quality of life and make the world a better place. Some of the real industry cases that I will be sharing in my course, a whole range from across the world, and some from New Zealand companies as well. And as I said, I often show the products that I'm talking about as well. So I can explain the process of how it was developed through the design thinking process, and how they applied it, and how they've been so successful. I also have a YouTube video called Bright Futures 2, which is about how you can plan for the future. So take a look when you have some time. What sort of innovation projects can design thinking be useful for? A wide variety, as I mentioned, right across agricultural products, sports goods, food, household appliances, medical, software, services, anything, consumer goods sold in the supermarket. Everything can use design thinking to come up with some improvements and to come up with something novel that people can use and benefit from. Design thinking is most useful in the very early stages when you're exploring problems and finding out who the customers are. It can be applied in even planning your own career and life, and that's why it's so useful for many people. Try and use the methods that you learn. And as I said, some of the generic methods can be used in any assignment, in projects at school or university or at your workplace. And now with COVID and beyond, as an entrepreneur, you might want to develop, say, a mask or protective equipment to protect people, not only from the virus, maybe just from dust, or maybe just from people coughing and sneezing. So you can make something really simple or something really sophisticated as well. But the design thinking stages takes you through that process. Who is the course for? anyone who wants to innovate and create solutions, people who are curious to learn, students at high school, students studying engineering or sciences or business, design, arts, everyone is welcome to join the course. So come along, learn your innovation skills, lift your capabilities, and enroll in the design thinking course. I'd like to finish off now with a quote from Steve Jobs. He says, "Innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity, not a threat." And I totally agree. With the world so rapidly changing so much today, there are lots of opportunities to innovate and improve and learn and make the world a better place and do things differently. So we all have something much better to look forward to. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So pleased that you're all here. I will soon share my screen and we'll go through design thinking. So welcome to design thinking at Unschool, and really glad to have you all on board. I really hope that you will enjoy this session. My name is Aruna Shekhar, and I have done a PhD in product development at Massey University in Auckland, New Zealand. There's a bit more about my profile on LinkedIn or in the introduction video clip as well. I've been a senior lecturer at Massey University in New Zealand for about 25 years. And I've also been an innovation coach, and I have set up a product innovation association in New Zealand. And I've had a number of years of experience running product innovation projects with industry. So I will present some real examples and case studies from my experience. And I think that'll really help you get inspired and be interested in design thinking and applying that in problem solving. So what are the learning outcomes of this particular course? You will learn the basic essentials of design thinking. You will learn the process and how to go about it. You will learn some of the key principles and several methods and tools. You'll know how to identify opportunities, how to solve problems, how to be creative and innovative, and how to generate a whole range of ideas and then be able to select from them. And also you'll gain insights from some fantastic case studies. Often, people come to me and say, "Oh, we've got this problem. What do we do next?" Or they might say, "We've got a lot of ideas, but how do we know which one to take forward?" So that is where design thinking comes in, and you will learn how to use it. So welcome to module 1, which is the process and the stages of design thinking. But first, what is design thinking? It's a collaborative and creative problem-solving approach to design solutions. So it is a team effort, and that's why it's collaborative. It is very creative because often you come up with something novel which you would never have thought of before, and it solves problems. Design thinking is best applied when the opportunity or the issue is not very well defined. So you can actually explore it through the design thinking process and the methods. It's very much for open-ended issues and big complex problems, and also used when user needs are rapidly changing, which is often the case. In fact, currently, there's so many things that are changing in our environment. Now, design thinking was a term that was coined by Stanford University and a design consultancy called IDEO in the US. I have worked very closely with the founders of IDEO, David Kelly and Tim Brown, and also with Stanford University professors at the design school. So I will be bringing some of my experiences from there as well. Now, what is the design thinking process? It's got 5 major stages: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. If you do a Google search, you'll come up with very similar diagrams. And this is from the design school at Stanford University. And there are lots and lots of variations to this process. Sometimes just the terms might be slightly different. Empathize might be called discovery stage or research. So don't get confused by the terminology. We'll stick to this general concept, and you'll understand how each of these stages follow each other and what are the activities within each of these stages as well. It's also sometimes referred to as the double diamond, because when you're working through the process, you tend to focus and you also flare out. So you converge when you're selecting ideas or concept, or you diverge and go wide. So there's this constant, coming down, selecting a few, and then going wide. And you'll understand this again when I explain all of the stages. But this session, I'll very quickly tell you what each of the stages involves. So the first stage is empathy, where you gather a lot of information. You listen and watch carefully. It's very human-centered, so you understand what users like, what they dislike, what problems they're having, what is the usage context, where do they have this problem, and then you also understand what they're trying to achieve. Unfortunately, 50% of companies still are not talking to their end users, which is a shame that, companies are in a business and they don't know who their customers are, they don't know where they are, they don't know why they buy the product. It is essential to know that in order to make sure you provide a solution or a product or a service that actually meets their needs. Empathy maps is one technique that design thinking has come up with, so I thought I'll cover that quickly here. It's a way of understanding your customers better. So it's like a map, and you have to find out from users how they feel about certain situations, what their pain points are, what is actually frustrating them, what their overall goal is, what are they trying to achieve, and therefore, how can you help them achieve that in a better manner? What are the other things that influence their tasks to get to their goal? And what are they trying to do? The next stage is define. So once you've gathered all that information in the first stage, you actually get back and define the problem clearly. It's really worth spending a lot of time here and making sure you get that clear, because that helps a lot. And you clearly define the scope of what it is you're looking at. For example, are you looking at all furniture design, or are you looking at just school furniture or business furniture, office furniture? So just as an example, you've got to scope that. The third stage is ideate. This is the fun stage where you can come up with a number of solutions. Often people make the mistake of coming with one idea and just taking that through. you really need to come up with a number of alternatives, number of solutions, so that you can then take it through the process and end up with the best solution. And you also use important criteria to make that selection. Stage 4 is prototyping. In design thinking, prototyping is a simple mock-up, something that is very quick, that is rapid, that is simple, that can just be put together very quickly with some of the things that are available just on your office desk or your school desk. And as you can see, some of the images around on the slide, it's just paper prototyping or cardboard. It gives a good idea, not only to yourself, but to your team members, and you can take it forward by just this simple prototype. Because if you spend hours on a CAD design, on hours making a prototype, you then tend to get attached to it and you don't want to leave it and you feel you want to push that through. So early prototyping helps you actually take feedback honestly and modify it quickly. The test stage is when you get feedback at various levels. Feedback in the lab, feedback from your team members, feedback from stakeholders, users out in the field. So all of that helps you refine your prototype. The example in the center of the slide at the bottom is a surgical tool that the team at IDEO actually developed an early prototype of, just to understand what it's going to be like. So it's really good to get quick user feedback early before things get more expensive down the process. Iteration is an important term in design thinking. It means repetition. It's where you do this test and then you go back and prototype again. And then you design, build, test, design, build, test until you get a refined prototype that everyone's happy with. Now coming to the design thinking principles or D-thinking, it's human-centered, very much the user in the center, and making sure that you really deeply understand their problems and issues and develop solutions accordingly. It's got a bias towards action. So it is prototyping, it's going out into the field, it's testing things, it's doing a lot of things. It's not just sitting in your head. It's radical collaboration, which means you've got to go get out of the office, go and talk to people, go and talk to the stakeholders, and involve diverse people in your team. That's when you will get breakthrough ideas for your solutions. It involves a culture of prototyping, as you just saw, lots of early prototyping so that you can, experiment early on. It's okay to make mistakes early rather than later on. And it is show rather than tell, so a lot of visual information. Try and sketch your ideas, show diagrams, so be visual, show graphs, anything that can, we know that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And then finally, being mindful of the process. So you need to know where you are in this design thinking process and how you're progressing. I will be sharing several real company cases throughout, and some of your projects will be around these industry case studies, and you will learn a lot from some of those. So I'm really looking forward to having you all go through some of these projects and case studies. When you have the time, take a look at this YouTube video clip that I put called Bright Futures 2. It helps you prepare and plan for the future. So in conclusion, we've covered the design thinking process, the stages, the principles, the approach and mindset. And one thing you can apply straight away is empathy maps. Next session, I'll cover the next stages in detail, and I'll also cover a number of other design thinking methods, very, very useful across the board. You can use it in so many other applications. And I'll also introduce your mini project or case study. A number of resources will also be provided throughout, some really good YouTube videos, and also some links and books that could help you learn a lot more. Remember that you get a certificate of completion if you complete all of the sessions and the quizzes and the projects. And the main thing is you will learn a lot. So thank you very much and all the best. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'll share the screen now. Okay, so we are covering design thinking, and we had the first session, which was an introduction, and then we had the design thinking process and methods. And today we're going to cover the first stage of design thinking process, which is empathize or empathy. It is section 2 because section 1 was the introduction or an overview of the process and the methods in brief. But from now on, we'll go into detail of each of the stages, the 5 stages of the design thinking process. So the very first stage is empathize or empathy. Here's a reminder of the process, and we have empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And as I mentioned in the last session, the whole process involves convergent and divergent thinking. So convergent is when you focus down and narrow. Divergence is when you go wide and flare out and think of different ideas. Okay. So going into the section 2, which is empathize, is the focus here is on knowing your customer well. Okay, so you gather a lot of information, mostly focused on your user, but I will also cover some of the other important things you need to look at based on other processes. As I've been teaching product innovation for 25 years, we've had so many other processes as well, and companies are using them. Design thinking is one of the many processes, and it was introduced by David Kelly and IDEO. It just encapsulates their methods and their techniques and the early stage of product innovation. And then following on, you can use other processes and other methods as well. But I'll focus on design thinking methods in this course. So in design thinking, they focus a lot on qualitative methods, which is more about being in the environment that the customer is in and observing how they behave with the product and looking at what are the other things in the context that influence their usage. So you really need to listen and watch carefully. You need to understand and find out their likes and dislikes with the product. You need to learn from the context. A lot of the times, by being there as a researcher or as a designer, you're actually observing a lot of things and gaining a lot of insights that sometimes even the customer may not tell you, but you are observing that and you gather a lot of insights that help you solve the problem. And then you also look at what are the tasks that the customer is trying to achieve and what are their goals and what are their pain points. Okay. So empathy maps is one method in design thinking, and it is basically mapping all of those important things about the user. What are the tasks they're trying to achieve? What are the things that are influencing that? What are their goals? What are their pain points or frustrations while they're using the product or service? And then how do they feel about it? Remember, throughout, when I say product in this course, I also mean services, product in its broadest sense. So it involves services, website. So it could be a banking service or an airport service or a physical product that you're designing, like a computer mouse or a sticky tape dispenser or whatever it is. It is the same overall thinking and doing process. So in the empathy stage, you also can collect global trends in the industry, in that product category, or you might even observe user trends. What are people, doing? Are they eating out more often? Are they becoming more environmentally conscious? All of those trends can impact certain products. And also you need to look at close product competitors. So I will go through that as well as a method. And you're understanding how they're interacting with products. So don't make assumptions. For example, if you're looking at a certain type of packaging for your product, you need to consider if it's something that the elderly, say 75 or 70 plus years, are going to use that product, then you need to also consider how will someone who's an elderly and suffering with arthritis, would they be able to open your packaging? A lot of the times they find it very difficult to handle some of this packaging. It's very common in the Western world, and demographically, the Western world has a huge population of elderly. So that becomes an opportunity for you to innovate and come up with a solution and solve that problem. So these are some other techniques that are used in other processes and in innovation generally. I mean, anytime you're trying to solve a problem, you're probably improving or innovating as well. Um, Generally, people start off with secondary or desk research, which is looking at online data, looking at customer reviews, and finding out what issues people have with products or services. You can attend trade fairs or conferences, look through trade literature and competitor literature. Sometimes you could do focus groups, which is a qualitative method because it's just dealing with small numbers of people. And it's usually answering questions like why? Why are you buying this product? Why not the other product? And then you could do consumer surveys, which are quantitative methods because you're dealing with large numbers, quantities of people. And you're usually asking questions such as how much or how many of these products or how often do you buy this product? And it's a series of questions that you send out to a large population. Ethnography is one of the techniques used in design thinking because it's qualitative and it is an in-field study. So you actually go out into the field and observe consumers. And then you have online discussion forums, and then you could also do a patent search if you're into product development or product innovation, because it's useful for two things. One is to see if you can get some ideas and then improve on that. And the other thing is to make sure that you're not infringing on somebody else's patent right. Customer journey map is an excellent tool or method. It's a visual representation of the customer's experiences with your product or service. And what you do is, again, you map the customer's touch points at each stage, right through the process they go through, from being aware of that product that's being available in the market, to considering what the product is, then going to purchase it from the retail outlet, then using the product, or sometimes if it's a product that the retail outlet has to deliver, then they've got to wait till it arrives at their door. And then how they use it and what they feel about it while using it, while disposing the packaging. And finally, advocacy. That is, will they recommend the product or the service? Okay, so if you map this, you then look at each of those touch points of the customer with your company and you see where customers might be having a problem. Are they having a problem in finding out about the product? Then in that case, you need to have your product information more readily available. Or are they finding it difficult to find it in the retail outlet? So you tend to find out. If you map this, then you can find out where exactly the problem is in order to improve it. Okay. Personas, really useful technique that you could learn to use and use it often. Basically, these are fictional characters which you create based on your research and information that you've gathered from different users. And it helps you in your ideation. It's like a reference point. So when you come up with ideas in the next stage, you will refer to it with your persona next to your idea and say, do you think this persona will be interested in this product? So it's a good way of keeping you relevant to the user. So here's an example of a persona. So you usually have a picture of the person, just a typical person. You give the person a name, just to make it as real as possible because it's representing a real consumer. And then you have a brief description about the person, their personality, their values, what they think, what they perceive, what their goals are, what are the tasks they want to achieve, what are their frustrations. That's so important. You need to know what is it that they really are unhappy about or unsatisfied, because that's where you can improve your product or service and do better than the competitor. And then you find out what their motivations are. Why are they buying your product? Or why are they buying a competitor's product? So one unique thing about this course is I'm also going to take you through an active example. So it's an activity of a mask. I decided to choose a mask because it's so relevant now during the COVID times. Um, let's see if we can go through the design thinking process and develop a mask. It's optional. It's up to you if you want to take it further and just do this as part of your homework. But now, seeing that we're on the empathy stage, the questions you should ask are, who are the users you're solving an issue for? What are their likes and dislikes? So among the mask users, you can either pick a group that you're really interested in and you want to help out, or you look at competitors and you look at the gap in the market and you pick a mask or you pick a target group that you think you want to solve the problem for. Okay. So in this case, I've actually made a competitor table, which is another really good method to use. And it's good to lay it out like this, where you have the names of the product, you have a visual image of those different products that are available. You also have the cost or the cost range that you can find out and fill in this table. You then have some features about the product, whether they're reusable or they have changing filters or they're washable or disposable. And then what are the unique features? Are there some features that are quite unique so that you can see if you want to have that in your new product or not? So some of these products here are high tech, some are, really designer and fashionable, as the second one here. Some are medical, and they are N95, which is a really good level of filtration. And then you've got the target market they're aimed at. Are they aimed at adults or children or nurses and doctors or the general public? And then which country is it made in? So this sort of information put on one page is so useful because then you can see how your new product or idea can fit in, okay? But in this case, I have just looked at a broad range of masks. But if you start deciding which target market you're looking at, whether you're looking at children or the elderly, then you can look at the masks that are available specifically for that group and then create a table like this and fill it up. So you might want to say, create a table like this for children age 9 to 11, or you might create one for the elderly. Maybe the elderly would like something traditional, but that's something you need to find out as you go on. So in the empathy stage, you will actually speak to some elderly, speak to them and ask them what their likes and dislikes are. What are their frustrations? Do they find that they forget to take their mask, and therefore is it better if it is maybe attached to their spectacles or attached to their keychain, so that when they're going out of the door they remember to have one? So there are little things like that. And then you could create a persona, which is here I've just created the blank page to tell you what is most important. So you can have a name for the persona, you can have a picture of that person. So if it's elderly, you have a picture of an elderly person. You describe what their lifestyle like is, what their goals are, what their values are. Do they only want environmentally friendly materials, or are they quite fashionable and so they want something really colorful in a mask? Or what are their issues? Do they want something really soft on their skin? Do they want something transparent so people can see their mouth? So it depends on what it is they want and ask for. And then you can capture a quotation or something that they said that's really important, that tells you about what they like or need. I'm also going to give you some projects as part of this course, really fascinating case studies. The minor project is a fish factory failure. I thought you can learn a lot from both a failure and a success story. And the major project is Blisco's design thinking success, how this company was really struggling with competition. And then they used the design thinking process within their company, and they did really, really well. So you learn a lot from some of those projects. And then a little reminder about my YouTube video. You can have a look at it. It's giving you a few tips about how to plan for the future, which can help you with your studies, assignments, and your career as well. So in conclusion, you've learned the empathy stage, which is really getting to know the customer well, and all the activities and tasks and ways of collecting information. There's an activity example, such as the mask project, which I'll take through right through the stages. And then remember that with all these methods, it's good to learn how to use them and apply them, because if you apply them, you learn the advantages and disadvantages of each method, and you learn to improve the method itself. So today you are exposed to empathy maps, personas, the competitor table, and customer journey maps, all very useful techniques. Next session, I will cover stage 2, which is defining the problem or reframing the problem based on all the information that you collected in the empathy stage. And we'll also cover mind maps as a useful method. So this is just a final little photo taken in Stanford University when I collaborated with Professor David Kelly, who was also the founder of IDEO, design consultancy in the US. And David Kelly coined the term design thinking. That's it for now. Thank you and best wishes. Bye. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Design Thinking course. My name is Aruna Shekhar, and we are going to talk about define, the define stage in the design thinking process. So you will remember this is the process, and we covered empathize, where we gathered a lot of information. So now we are going on to focusing all that information, synthesizing it, and arriving at a definition of the problem statement. So it actually gives you the scope of your project. So a little bit about the process itself, and a reminder that although it looks like the 5 stages are one after the other, it is actually an iterative process where sometimes you might have to go back. Like, for instance, when you're in the define stage and you're looking at the information you've collected, you might find that there's a gap of information and you might need to go back into the field and check that. Starting with a good understanding of the situation is like the foundation. So it's really important, because if you get that right, then the later stages are more successful. It's also a different mindset from earlier days when people used to start with a product and try to push it into the market. But now it is actually understanding what people want and need, and then building something that's meaningful and relevant to their use. It's okay to experiment early on, because in the process, things get more expensive later on. So it's much, much better to experiment and trial and almost fail early on when you're trying things. It's okay, because it's low cost and you can, you know, improve on the experiments or the product or the service that you're trialing at the very beginning. And also, another thing about the philosophy or the mindset is to be comfortable with ambiguity at the start. At the start of the project, you may not know what exactly you're going to develop and what you're going to end up with. And so you should be comfortable with that. So in the define stage, you've come from the first stage of empathize, where you've collected all that information from users and the market and the situation. And then what you do is you could use post-it notes and write down a key insight that you gathered on those post-it notes and put it up on the wall, and then try and see if it all makes sense, whether you can see patterns emerging. And then you can go forth and reframe the problem based on your user insights and the information that you gather. So this helps with deciding on the scope of the project. For example, are you going to look at all furniture, or are you going to look at just office furniture in your development? Or are you going to look at all masks that are available if you're developing new face mask? Or are you going to look at a specific mask that is equivalent to N95 filtration? So it's things like that that you make a decision on now. And generally in design thinking, you start with the term, how might we? How might we design your product or service for the user group, and so on. So you are adding detail to the problem statement. So in this stage, a mind map can be useful, because it helps you manage all that information that you've gathered, and you could visually present it to the team. So a mind map is a visual representation of your issue, and it organizes your thoughts and makes things a little clearer and finds patterns. So what you do is write down your main problem that you found out in the center, and then branch out. You could have 5 to 8 branches, and then again, further branches from that. So you're basically categorizing your information. And here's an example. So you've got this example here of 8 steps of product development, and you've got idea generation, idea screening, concept development, marketing strategy, business analysis, product development, market testing, and commercialization. And then you're branching off into those little sub branches as well. And use color because it just helps understand and makes it a lot easier as well to group your categories. Here's another example with product design, and you've got needs, you've got analysis, you've got design features, feature 1, 2, 3, what is the concept around, what are the themes or colors or materials involved, risk management. So you've got all of that, technology support. Depends on whatever is important, whatever has come through from the empathize stage, you can put it across in a mind map like this. And I think there's some software to do that as well called MindMan. Now, referring to our activity example, the mask project. So if you were to define your problem statement for the mask, there are two ways you could do it. One is a very specific or closed project brief, which is how might we design a simple mask for elderly users made of cotton cloth that is soft, breathable, and washable, that can be put together quickly and used easily. So this is very specific, quite a tight brief. It's very clear about the elderly segment because they are the ones who are affected most by COVID. And it's clearly telling you this is the group, and demographically this group is growing very rapidly in the world. And it's telling you something about the raw materials of the product, that is cotton, or you could have just the properties of the material, such as you want a material that's soft, breathable, and washable. So you might select an appropriate material. You need not say cotton cloth at this stage. And then something about the functionality, that it can be assembled quickly and used very easily by the elderly, easy to put on and remove. A more open brief would be the next one. How might we prevent or restrict the spread of germs from a person's mouth when they are sneezing, coughing, talking, singing, whatever? So it's very broad. It could be anything at all. So you're preventing the spread of germs from a person's mouth. Could be any form of mask, from high tech to low tech, from something really complex to something very simple. So this is where the scoping is decided on, discussed with the team and decided on. So in conclusion, you went through the define stage, which is a focusing stage from the earlier flare stage that we were in, and you learned how to use mind maps in a way, as a way of representing all that information. So the next session is going to be ideation, one of my favorites, and you learn a number of methods to generate ideas. The future is best found in the opportunities that go unnoticed in the present. So it's finding those opportunities and issues to solve that actually creates the future. Thank you very much. See you at the next session. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Design Thinking course. I'll share my screen. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This is the Design Thinking course, and I'm going to take you through the next stage, the design process, which is ideate. which is the idea generation phase, when we go laterally, expand, imagine a whole range of ideas, and that is the foundation of your successful product or service. So, as you remember, the design process has those 5 stages of empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Why is idea generation so important? Because it is the foundation. It is also very important because, unfortunately, a very big number of products and services fail in the market. And so you want to make sure that you are increasing the chances of success. Most firms perform poorly at this front end in the process. So to ensure many options are explored, not just the first idea. A lot of the times people just go with the first idea. And also you can combine different ideas and form new solutions. Brainstorming is one method. Most of you are familiar with this, so I won't spend too much time on this. It's free-flowing. Your quantity is important. Everyone should have a chance to have a go at coming up with ideas, no criticisms, and you finally group and prioritize those ideas that you've collected. That's an important stage. Challenge listing or scamper is another very useful method. It stands for substitute components or materials or parts, combine different parts, adapt or change a function or use it differently, modify, change shape, color, frequency, put to another use in another market or another context, eliminate or simplify and reduce some features, and reverse. So there are different ways of coming up with new ideas. Analogy is another favorite of mine, and this is something that you can do by observing nature and seeing how nature has solved some problem, because nature has been around for so many million years, and adapting and modifying that to suit your particular situation. And the example here is of a biologist who went out for a walk, and he had these little burrs or little seeds stuck to his trousers, and that was the story of Velcro. This is another example from one of my students who developed a helmet, and she looked at nature and looked at fish and how it slides through water. And she designed her bicycle helmet based around the idea of a fish, or how sardines are next to each other. And she got the idea from that, of the wind blowing over the helmet. This is an example of analogy used for masks, where this person has looked at a lobster and has adapted those compartments of fixing it around the face in little parts. So you can think about that. Look at Biomimicry by Janine Benyus, and that's on TED.com. So have a look at how engineers and innovators look at nature and come up with ideas. 6 thinking hats is another fascinating idea, simple but amazingly useful. So it's got these different thinking hats so that you are clear about which mode of thinking you are in. So white hat is for facts and figures, green hat is for the stage, ideation, yellow hat is thinking positively about the idea, red hat is all your gut feeling and how you feel about it, and then black hat is being critical, and blue hat is like an overview. So this is an example of how you would use it in different stages of the project, starting with white hat, going to green, yellow, black, red, your feelings, and then finally the blue hat, which is like a summary of the whole meeting. So you can use it in any order that you like, but it's really powerful. This is an example of how you can use sketching as a method of idea generation. So if you just, doesn't have to be so good, can be just a simple line drawing, and then write down the pros and cons of each idea and what is unique about each idea. What is that feature that is setting it apart and giving it that competitive advantage? Now you could think about your mask project, which is our activity example, and do the same thing. Start sketching various ideas and then developing those ideas into concepts. So we started off with empathy. We decided we'll work for elderly people. We defined the problem clearly. We said that it has to be soft material, it's got to be easy to assemble, easy to put together, and really simple for the elderly to use. And now we have some ideas and sketches. Reflect on what you've learned in this course so far, take down notes, try and complete the quizzes, and read through the minor and major project, which are really, really interesting case studies. And in conclusion, we learned about the ideate stage, which is really important to come up with the quantity of ideas. And later on, we look at the quality and select and screen down. But right now, just a whole range of ideas without thinking about the constraints or why it can't be made or whatever. And the methods we discussed are brainstorming, Scamper, 6 hats, analogy, and sketching. Next session, we'll go into the next stage, which is prototyping. And I thought I'll end off with a collage of photographs of things that I've been involved in. Thank you very much. See you in the next session. Today's session is on, welcome back. Welcome to Design Thinking. My name is Aruna Shekhar. So today's session is on prototyping, which is the next stage after ideate. So we had empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And we generated a whole lot of ideas in the last session. So this session is about prototyping. So what is prototyping? Prototyping is the process of making mock-ups to convey ideas. So the main purpose is to get your idea across and get feedback. Okay, and there are different types of prototyping, and there's different purposes for prototyping, and I'll talk about them. And at the same time, I'll show you some of the mock-ups that my students have made, which is quite interesting to see. So here on the right, you can see a few prototypes made out of blue foam, and these are looks like prototypes. So it just shows you the shape and form and size of what they're planning to make. There are 4 uses to prototyping. One is to learn. It answers questions about how big in terms of the shape or its functionality, whether it's going to suit the different parts and how it's going to perform. The other one is communicating, sharing your idea and demonstrating it. Then there's integration, which is combining different parts into a whole just to make sure that it fits properly and it's compatible. And also as a milestone in your schedule of development. So it's one goal that you've reached where you come to prototyping stage. You know, remember we had the double diamond, and now we are focusing on prototyping. And sometimes the first prototype that you can share is also referred to as a minimum viable product or MVP. The different types of prototyping. In design thinking, we use very simple prototypes or simple mock-ups, as I've shown earlier as well, with that surgery example where they just make a little prototype out of a pen and some sticky tape. And you can use just paper prototyping, or use Velcro dots or sticky notes, or a cardboard, like here, you've got a cardboard bench. And then later on, you might go into using green foam or blue foam and wood and plastic, or you might make a computer-aided design mock-up, but that takes a bit longer. So you do that at a little later stage. But early on, you just make something simple to convey the idea. And when you're making a physical product, you could have a looks like prototype or a works like prototype. And I'll show you other examples as well. And then there's rapid prototyping and 3D printing as well, which you can use later on in the process. And computer simulations and virtual, virtual versions of your product or service. Here's another prototype that my student developed. And here she's just made it out of foam. And in this case, she wanted to, it's a handheld device for a safety warning while you're in the water. So she wanted to hold it in her palm to see if it's the right shape and size and if it's comfortable around the neck, or where it would be the best person for a swimmer to wear it while swimming. So prototyping is making things to communicate your ideas, and it's also important to make many prototypes when the cost is a lot less. So it's something that you do earlier on in the process. Here are a couple of real life examples from a project that I've worked on. The first one on the top is with Rinnai heaters. We made a quick mock-up, and as you can see, it's just a tennis ball that we cut up and stuck a little disc on it to show when we were trialing different shapes for the remote for the heater. And so that's just a looks like. It's showing the temperature and the time as well. Going back to that same slide, the works like model is an electronic model, which we worked on for an air quality project. And works like models usually don't look very pretty, but it's just to show how it might function. And there's an LCD screen and various sensors and circuit board. Storyboarding is a very good technique when you want to convey how the product or service is going to be used by the user. It shows the sequence of events and experiences of the user. It's really good. It's pictorial. So in this case, it's a baby monitor for deaf parents. So they're showing in the first scene how the mother's putting the baby to sleep, and the product sits on the wrist of the mother. And the mother carries on doing various chores like ironing. And then there's a buzzer goes off, and she says, "It's okay, mommy's here." And that's connected to the little teddy bear that the baby's got, and the baby feels protected and goes off to sleep. So there's some resources that you could refer to, more about methods in design thinking, the design thinking process and methods by Rob Cudale. And the other one is the Field Guide to Human-Centered Design. So have a look in your libraries and take a look at the various methods there. This is the activity project that I've been talking about right through, just in case some of you really want to do the project hands-on. I encourage you to do it because then you learn a lot more. So I just came up with a number of ideas for a new mask, such as providing a pack of 10 rather than single ones, or a pack of 50, which is now available. This is again for elderly people, or providing a kit which has everything in it: the mask, the glove, the sanitizer, and the eye shield. So people don't have to go around shopping for each item. Or a DIY, that is a do-it-yourself kit with various filters of various grades for different purposes, for dust or virus or whatever it is, or just the sneezing and the coughing, all of that. So you can have different grades of filters that the person can then decide which one to put on. And then different fabrics for customization. Some people might like a floral design, some might want something soft, some might want a checkered one. So depending on what the situation is, they can select a fabric and customize it. An eco mask using recyclable materials, or a transparent front so that you can see the mouth and expressions of the person. So make something simple to share with elderly and gain feedback. So in conclusion, you learned about storyboarding, you learned about prototyping, and that prototyping is really a quick, low-cost method of conveying your idea to your team members, to the users, and to gain feedback, basically to refine your idea and to improve on it. Okay, the next session, the testing stage, is related to the stage, so we'll go over different types of testing methods. Check this Facebook website. It's on new product innovation. Basically, for you to network with other entrepreneurs, students, people interested in design thinking. Feel free to contribute and, participate in that group, and you'll feel like you are, belonging, and you'll feel like you're learning things from different people across the world. Okay, then. Thank you. See you at the next session. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the last stage in design thinking. I will share my screen. I'll put it on full view. Okay. It's good that you've learned quite a bit from the start. You went through the introduction, you went through all of the stages, and now we are at the last stage of design thinking. My name is Aruna Shekhar, and I have had decades of experience in this field, so I can share a lot of my own experiences and examples. In fact, the mini project and the major project are also interesting case studies, and they develop your creative and critical thinking skills, which is very important to solve some of the world's problems. And there's a lot of research to say that that is really important. And hence, I've given you some real case examples. Okay, now we are at the, I'll just go back. Yeah, at the test stage. So we went through empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And remember, this is a very effective, simple framework which you can use widely, whether it's a product or a service or a website or an app that you're developing. And you need to continuously improve. I've added those two arrows just to show that it is an iterative process, and you could even go back and redefine and regenerate ideas. But remember, even though it's visually it looks like a linear process, it really is an iterative, continuous improvement process where you're constantly updating and improving your products and services. So the testing stage, as soon as you've got your quick rough prototype, you start testing it. You share it, you show and tell, you give it to users, buyers, influencers, anyone in your target market, get them to use it, tell them to be honest about their opinions. And that is a good thing about the design process, is they encourage you to form rough, quick prototypes so that you're not emotionally attached to it. You haven't spent days and years developing the prototype, so you're not tied down to it, and you don't feel bad changing it because you haven't spent too much time. And the earlier you get this feedback, the less expensive it is in the process as well. So you learn, you refine, you test it, you reflect on the process itself, and you might have to go back on that. And you make sure that you are actually meeting the original objectives that you set out to do. And you already are familiar with the term iterate, which means repeat some of the steps. And finally, when you're comfortable, when the user is satisfied, you launch and deliver it, you promote it, you publish it, depending on what it is, the product or service. So there are different testing methods. The alpha test is in-house or within your development team or within your office or lab, a beta test is external. It's going out into the field, and it's a simulation of the real conditions. So you just go there. You might do a little test market in a certain city where your target market lives. But for all of these, when you're dealing with people and you're interviewing them or observing them, always get permission and follow the ethical rules of human research. Um, check, yeah. Uh, Also follow regulations and standards, and often there are strict regulations you need to comply with. Make sure that your new product or service complies with that. And if you have done the mask project right through this, that's great. If you give it a shot, really well done. If you made something simple, then test it out with the elderly or whoever your target market is and gain feedback. Um, I've got something simple here to show you from what you can just take a handkerchief like this, just a square handkerchief, and fold it. Fold it thrice like this, and then you put a rubber band on either end. Like that. And you put this ends of the rubber band around your ears. So very quick, done in within 10 seconds really. So maybe that's something that elderly could do. They all have handkerchiefs at home, and they can choose whatever fabric material they want and use it, fold it up and use it. And it will prevent your sneezing and coughing from going very far and reaching other people and spreading the illness. Now, here are some tests for physical products, which is usually done much later in all of the other processes that are around. You have accelerated testing to check the lifespan of a product, fatigue testing to make sure that it can last and to see what breaks down while you're applying loads. It's basically repetitive use testing. You have environmental testing to test your product against exposure to dust, weather conditions, corrosion, thermal, mechanical shock, vibration, or shelf life testing. Shelf life testing is very important in the food industry and for food products. Crash testing, wind tunnel testing for things like cars, and drop testing is to test out the strength of your product. You might say, okay, I'm going to drop it from this height, whatever that height is. You set it, you say 3 meters, and see if it is robust enough. And often you might need to create your own test. So for example, if you were to test this little mask design, I would check that maybe for a start, does it actually prevent dust from coming through? So what I could do is put a vacuum cleaner, put the nozzle against this fabric, against like 4 layers of the fabric, and see if it's drawing the dust through the fabric. That's a simple test to do at home. So in conclusion, you learned about the various stages. It's really exciting. Design thinking is a simple process, but very effective. And the best part, it can be applied to a wide range of industries. I'd encourage you to actually try it out, because you learn a lot by trying out these methods and the process framework. Remember that you are continuously improving. So the last stage, even though it's the last stage in the process, you might have to go back and iterate and reflect on that. You learn by applying the framework and the methods. You've learned several methods right through this program and series. Keep a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset where you just want to carry on and do the same old things, same old ways. Open your mind, listen to users, be really honest and take that feedback and act on that. It's being comfortable with ambiguity. At the start, you'll never know what your product or service might look like, and you should be comfortable with that. You should explore a whole range of alternatives and solutions before you settle on one. Get many different perspectives. That's the human-centered side of the design process. And definitely action-oriented, doing it, seeking input, designing, trialing, experimenting, and finally testing. So that's the process in really simple terms. And I hope you enjoy the course as well as the assessments. If you have questions, feel free to ask. As I said, the cases build on your critical analysis skills. And also tell us what else you want to learn about next. Some more about innovation itself and how it's managed, maybe teamwork and how to manage a team and how to lead a team, project management methods, sustainability, and do you want to hear about more real cases and examples? Just let us know. And that's it for today. Thank you very much.